We often hear advice that sounds like a mystery. Just be detached. Don't care too much, or let her come to you. But why does detachment, something that sounds like emotional distance, end up creating more attraction? Let's break this down, not with guesswork, with human psychology, social behavior, and an understanding of what truly drives connection. Let's begin with this. People are drawn to strength, not need. And one of the most visible signs of emotional strength is detachment. Now, detachment doesn't mean coldness. It doesn't mean you stop caring, avoid love, or become indifferent to others. True detachment is the ability to stay grounded in yourself. It's knowing that your emotional state isn't controlled by someone else's behavior. And that calm presence, it's magnetic. When you are detached, you are no longer trying to impress, prove, or chase. And because of that, something incredible happens. You create space. In that space, attraction can grow organically without force or pressure. You become someone who does not need to be chosen, and paradoxically, that makes you far more desirable to be chosen. Let's dig deeper. Women, like all human beings, are wired to seek value, safety, and strength in a partner. Emotional neediness signals the opposite. It says, I'm not okay unless you validate me. That creates pressure. Pressure pushes people away, but detachment removes that pressure. You stop trying to pull her into your world, and instead you build your own world so strong and centered that she wants to be a part of it. And here's something crucial. Detachment doesn't mean you're unavailable. It means you are selective. You value yourself. You observe instead of over-investing. You don't rush to respond to every emotion or text. That doesn't make you rude. It makes you stable. And women notice this because detachment is rare. Most people are addicted to validation, especially in the dating world. When you're detached, you signal, I have a life, I have purpose. I'm not here to win approval. I'm here to connect with someone who aligns with me. That's confidence without arrogance. That's power without control. That's exactly what creates natural attraction. In truth, detachment is a byproduct of something even deeper, self-worth. When you believe you are enough, you stop trying to earn love, you begin to share it, and people feel that. They lean into it. Because that energy is secure, clean, trustworthy. So if you're wondering how to attract someone, not just temporarily, but in a way that builds deep respect, start by mastering detachment. Not by pretending, but by actually building a life, a mindset, and a purpose that doesn't revolve around being accepted, but around growing with someone who genuinely chooses you. Because at the end of the day, detachment isn't about being less emotional. It's about being more emotionally intelligent. 5 keynotes of the speech. Detachment signals emotional strength, not emotional distance, making you more attractive. People are naturally drawn to those who don't seek validation, but offer stability and presence. Detachment removes pressure and creates space for organic attraction to grow. True detachment comes from self-worth, not game playing. It's rooted in inner security. When you stop chasing and start choosing, you become someone others want to follow and be with. Detachment is often misunderstood as emotional coldness or lack of interest, especially in the context of relationships. But in truth, it is one of the strongest indicators of emotional maturity and personal power. Detachment, in its healthiest form, signals emotional strength, not weakness, not apathy, and certainly not indifference. It is the ability to remain centered, calm, and self-assured in your own identity, regardless of how others behave. And that kind of internal stability is incredibly attractive, especially to women. In the modern world, where so many people are constantly chasing approval, affirmation, and attention, someone who remains grounded and composed stands out. Emotional strength creates a sense of safety. It communicates that you are not going to be pulled into drama, that you are not emotionally reactive, and that you do not make someone else the source of your happiness. That energy is rare, and rare is always valuable. When a man displays detachment, he shows that he is not emotionally dependent on the outcome of a situation. He does not get desperate if someone pulls away. He does not crumble under emotional pressure. This quiet confidence speaks volumes. It says, am whole with or without your attention. And that subtle message is powerful because it creates intrigue and respect. Women are instinctively drawn to someone who is self-contained, who doesn't chase affection, but allows it to come naturally. What makes detachment so magnetic is that it signals control, not of others, but of the self. When you are emotionally strong, you don't respond impulsively, you don't beg for reassurance, you don't collapse into anxiety every time there's distance or silence. That strength shows that you're not governed by fear, but by clarity, and clarity is rare in emotional dynamics. Most people are chasing illusions, trying to hold on to something because of their insecurities. When you step out of that cycle, become the exception, and exceptions attract attention. From a psychological standpoint, detachment also reflects secure attachment. People who are securely attached are comfortable with intimacy but are not dependent on it. They can love without clinging, support without controlling, and care without losing themselves. That creates a sense of freedom in the relationship, and freedom is deeply attractive because it removes the fear of emotional suffocation. No one wants to feel trapped. No one wants to feel responsible for someone else's entire emotional well-being. When you show that you can stand on your own emotionally and mentally, you become someone who is easier and more desirable to connect with. It's important to understand that women don't necessarily articulate this attraction to detachment in conscious terms, but they feel it. They sense when a man is calm versus anxious, present versus needy, whole versus desperate. Emotional energy is deeply intuitive. It is not always what you say or do, but how you carry yourself. When you carry yourself with inner stillness, when you are not reacting out of fear or chasing approval, you radiate a form of strength that doesn't have to be announced. It's simply known. Moreover, detachment gives you the ability to make better decisions. You don't get clouded by emotions. You're able to observe clearly, act deliberately, and walk away when necessary. That sense of self-control is not only healthy, it's also highly attractive because it shows that your life is not dictated by others, but directed by values, principles, purpose. And when someone lives with purpose, their attention becomes more meaningful. Their presence becomes more valuable because it's not given out of need, it's offered out of choice. So when you are detached, you're not emotionally disengaged. You are simply unshaken. That unshakable energy draws others in. It creates the impression that you're not easily influenced, not easily rattled, and not easily impressed. And people want to be the one who earns your interest because it means something. That's why emotional strength shown through detachment is not just powerful, it's profoundly attractive. People are naturally drawn to those who don't seek validation but offer stability and presence. This principle applies across all human relationships, but it becomes especially powerful in romantic attraction. When a person enters a space with a quiet confidence, not trying to be noticed or approved of, they create a sense of ease. They don't demand attention, they attract it. And that is a result of not needing validation to feel worthy. Instead of looking for approval from others, they radiate a sense of inner certainty that others can feel and often want to be around. Validation seeking is a common behavior in today's world. Social media, peer pressure, cultural conditioning have all taught people that being liked equals being worthy. As a result, many people base their confidence on external factors, how they look, how many compliments they receive, how fast someone replies to their messages. But this dependency creates a fragile sense of self. It creates a pattern where a person constantly needs reassurance to feel secure. And that energy can become emotionally exhausting for others. On the other hand, someone who does not seek constant validation offers a sense of calm and balance. They don't need to be praised to know their value. They don't overcompensate or over-explain. They speak when necessary, listen attentively, and act with intention. That groundedness can be felt by everyone around them. When you're around someone who doesn't need you to constantly affirm them, it becomes easier to relax and just be yourself. And that comfort is attractive. In relationships, especially in the early stages of dating, energy matters more than words. When a man is secure in himself, it shows in the way he communicates. He doesn't over-text, over-promise, or try too hard to impress. His presence speaks for itself. He creates emotional space where the other person can feel seen, not judged, and not pressured. This is very different from someone who is always trying to prove themselves, someone who's always asking, do you like me? Did I do enough? Am I good enough? That type of behavior, while understandable, tends to push people away because it places emotional labor on the other person. It says, I need you to validate me so I can feel okay about myself. That's not attraction, it's emotional dependence. Women, like all people, are drawn to those who are emotionally balanced. When someone walks into a relationship with confidence and emotional independence, they automatically become more appealing. They aren't trying to get something, they are bringing something. They bring peace, emotional safety, and strength. That's a powerful dynamic shift. Instead of pulling energy, they offer it. And that changes the way they are perceived. They are no longer one of the many trying to be liked. They become one of the few who already like themselves. This inner stability becomes the foundation of natural charisma. It's not loud. It's not flashy, but it's incredibly powerful. People may not always know why they are drawn to someone, but they often say things like, there's something calm about him, or he just seems really sure of himself. That's what presence looks like when it's not rooted in the need for external validation. It's quiet strength. It's eye contact that doesn't seek approval. It's listening without the urge to interrupt. It's showing up without trying to impress. That's what makes someone feel like a safe place. And emotional safety is a cornerstone of attraction. When you stop seeking validation, you start leading with authenticity. You stop performing and start connecting. You no longer manipulate situations to be liked because you're not operating from fear. Instead, you allow people to meet the real you, calm, centered, and honest. And in a world full of people pretending to be something they're not, authenticity is irresistible. The paradox is simple but powerful. The less you seek to be validated, the more people value your presence. Because you are no longer trying to fill a void. You are standing in your fullness. And that fullness is what draws people to you, not because they feel obligated, but because they feel naturally pulled. That is the power of emotional stability and presence in a world that is constantly chasing approval. Detachment removes pressure and creates space for organic attraction to grow. In any relationship, especially in the early stages, the energy between two people is delicate. When one person becomes overly attached too soon, it often creates an imbalance. That imbalance usually leads to pressure, emotional pressure, expectation, and sometimes even unspoken demands. The more pressure someone feels, the more they instinctively pull away. This is not a conscious decision most of the time. It is a natural human response to feeling emotionally overwhelmed or boxed in. When you are detached in a healthy way, you allow the other person to come towards you on their own terms, which leads to a deeper, more authentic form of attraction. Attraction that grows naturally is rooted in curiosity, freedom, and discovery. It is not born out of persuasion, constant reassurance, or emotional dependency. When someone feels they are being chased, smothered, or emotionally pursued, it changes the dynamic. Instead of wanting to engage, they begin to feel a sense of obligation. That obligation can suffocate the desire that might have existed. True connection needs space to breathe. It needs room for both people to explore, to wonder, and to choose one another, not because of pressure, but because of genuine interest. Detachment allows you to step back and let that process unfold. It tells the other person, I'm here, but I'm not trying to control how this goes. That message is powerful. It removes hidden agendas and gives people the freedom to be themselves. And when people feel free, they open up. They are more relaxed, more authentic, and more likely to engage from a place of truth rather than obligation. When you don't force things to happen, you create the conditions where something real can actually develop. Often we think that if we care deeply or want someone, we have to show it through constant effort, attention, or emotional expression. But this can backfire when it's not balanced with restraint. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to control outcomes. It means you stop trying to rush emotional processes or force clarity too soon. By stepping back, you give the other person the chance to come forward. That movement towards you is where attraction builds. It's in the gap, the unknown, the space between actions where someone begins to wonder, who is this person? Why do I feel drawn to them? That wondering is the start of real desire. The irony is that when you're emotionally attached and trying to create closeness, you can accidentally create distance. You might send too many messages, offer too much too soon, demand answers before someone is ready. This causes tension and makes people feel like they are being evaluated, not chosen. But when you are detached, you let go of that urgency. You trust the process. You understand that if something is real, it will unfold in its own time. That level of patience is not weakness, it's emotional intelligence. It says, I value connection, but not at the expense of my peace. That self-respect becomes visible, and it draws others in. People need space to experience their own emotions. When you're constantly present, always available, or always reacting, you don't allow the other person to process how they feel about you. Detachment gives them time to feel your absence, to miss your presence, to reflect on the value you bring. That quiet space is where appreciation grows. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being okay with letting go of control. The confidence to step back is what often leads to someone stepping closer. In a culture obsessed with instant gratification, detachment is rare. Everyone wants immediate answers, constant reassurance, and quick emotional results. But that's not how real connection works. Detachment slows things down. It allows feelings to develop naturally. It takes the pressure off both people. And in doing so, it sets the stage for attraction to deepen authentically, meaningfully, and without force. Detachment comes from self-worth, not game playing. It's rooted in inner security. When we talk about detachment in the context of attraction or relationships, people often mistake it for manipulation or emotional games. They assume detachment means acting distant on purpose, ignoring someone to gain their attention, or pretending not to care. But those are not signs of real detachment. They are tactics rooted in insecurity. Real detachment isn't about creating confusion. It's about creating clarity within yourself. It's not about withholding love to get a reaction. It's about knowing your value so deeply that you don't feel the need to chase anyone for validation. Self-worth is the foundation of healthy detachment. When someone has genuine self-worth, they don't need to manipulate outcomes to feel valuable. They know their worth isn't tied to how someone else responds to them. They aren't waiting for attention or affection to feel secure. That creates a powerful energy, one that says, would love to connect with you, but I don't need you to define me. That kind of energy is rare, and anything rare becomes attractive. People who try to act detached without actually feeling self-assured often come across as cold or inconsistent. Their behavior may look calm on the surface, but it's driven by fear underneath, fear of being rejected, fear of not being good enough, fear of losing someone. That fear shows up in passive, aggressive actions, in games in silence that's meant to punish rather than create space. Real detachment doesn't look like that. Real detachment is clean, calm, and respectful. It's when you can say, I care, but I won't beg. I'm open, but I won't lose myself. That kind of detachment requires inner work. You can't fake it. You develop it by spending time alone, understanding your patterns, and building your own sense of identity that isn't dependent on external validation. You start to value your peace more than attention. You stop measuring your self-esteem by how often someone texts you or how quickly they respond. You realize that anyone who truly values you will make space for you, and anyone who doesn't isn't meant for your energy. That shift in perspective creates emotional independence, and that independence creates attraction. Because when you are not seeking to be chosen, you become the one who chooses. That changes the entire dynamic of how you move in relationships. You stop chasing and start observing. You stop performing and start showing up as your authentic self. And in that honesty, you attract people who are also emotionally available and secure. People who don't want to play games. People who respect your energy because you respect it first. Self-worth also gives you the ability to walk away when something isn't aligned. When you are truly detached, you don't hold on to things that are not good for you out of fear of being alone. You understand that being alone is not the worst outcome. Being misunderstood, undervalued, or emotionally drained is. So you protect your space. And that protection is not defensive, it's intentional. It says, I know what I bring. I know what I deserve. And I'm not afraid to wait for it. This kind of detachment, rooted in self-worth, is not about punishing the other person. It's not about making them feel like they have to earn you through suffering or confusion. It's about honoring yourself so deeply that you no longer compromise your emotional well, being just to be in someone's life. And that sense of self-respect speaks louder than any words ever could. It shows in your tone, in your timing, and in the way you carry yourself. No longer in a rush to prove anything to anyone, you're just being. And that being is enough. The truth is, people can sense whether your detachment is real or just a performance. Real detachment is peaceful. It doesn't seek revenge. It doesn't need attention. It simply moves with grace, trusting that the right people will understand its value. Because when you're rooted in self-worth, you stop trying to control who stays. You simply focus on who aligns. And that quiet strength is what turns detachment into something deeply magnetic. When a man is detached, he becomes a mystery, and mystery breeds intrigue. In a world where so much is overshared, overexplained, and overexposed, someone who doesn't reveal everything about himself immediately stands out. He creates space for curiosity to grow. That space is incredibly powerful in the psychology of attraction. Human beings are naturally drawn to what they can't fully understand, to what leaves them wondering. It's not manipulation, it's the art of restraint, of allowing things to unfold without rushing the process. When a man is not emotionally overexposed, when he's not constantly seeking approval or attention, he creates a silent question in the mind of others. Who is he really? This curiosity begins a process of emotional investment. People only ask questions when something within them wants answers. And the moment someone begins wondering about you, what you think, how you feel, what you want, they begin to engage with you on a deeper level. Not because you told them to. Not because you demanded their interest. Because you didn't try to force connection. That self-restraint, that quiet confidence becomes the very thing that draws people in. Detachment doesn't mean you're unavailable. It means you're selective. It means you don't open every door to just anyone, and you don't feel the need to constantly explain yourself. You trust that what is meant to understand you will. That energy, when carried with honesty and calmness, radiates depth. And depth is attractive because it suggests that there is more beneath the surface, something worth discovering, something that hasn't been handed out to everyone. In contrast, when someone is overly eager to explain themselves, constantly express how they feel, or always trying to be understood, they give away all their emotional mystery too quickly. They unintentionally remove the process of discovery. And in doing so, they also remove one of the key elements that make human connection exciting, the journey of getting to know someone. When there is nothing left to learn, curiosity fades. But when someone shows only what is necessary in the moment, when they remain rushed to be known without even trying, mystery is not about playing games, it's about patience. It's about letting someone earn access to your emotional world over time. That creates value, because the truth is, we only truly value what we have to understand slowly. What is rare gets our attention. What is immediately available, always explained and splained, constantly seeking to be seen, tends to be taken for granted. But when someone holds their emotional space with dignity, not with holding out of fear, but simply existing without urgency, they create a presence that lingers long after the conversation ends. When you are detached, you also signal that you are not trying to perform for anyone's affection. You don't need to overshare to feel close. You understand that true connection doesn't come from spilling everything at once. It comes from being consistent, intentional, selective with who gets to know your inner world. That selectiveness builds intrigue because it separates you from those who are emotionally impulsive or reactive. It creates a quiet sense of strength. And strength, especially silent strength, pulls people in. A man who doesn't chase validation, who doesn't need to prove himself, and who doesn't reveal everything at once becomes someone that others want to understand. And that want leads to effort. It leads to attention. It leads to attention. It leads to investment. Because people don't chase what is easily owned. They chase what is felt deeply but understood slowly. That slow understanding is the essence of emotional mystery. The paradox is that the less you reveal out of insecurity, the more powerful your presence becomes. Not because you're hiding, but because you're grounded. You're not trying to manipulate anyone into liking you. You're just being yourself, calm, composed, and non-needy. That natural restraint becomes your magnetism. It creates emotional space. It gives the other person room to feel, to think, engage without being overwhelmed. And in that space, real attraction begins to bloom, rooted not in pressure, but in genuine interest, curiosity, and emotional depth. The essence of detachment is not disinterest or indifference. It is grounded self-respect, quiet confidence, and emotional maturity. It is the understanding that true connection cannot be forced, chased, or controlled. When a man is detached, he operates from a place of wholeness rather than need. He doesn't seek validation to feel worthy. He brings value because he already knows his worth. He doesn't pressure, over-explain, or perform. Instead, he invites curiosity, creates space, and offers peace. And in that space, something powerful happens. Organic attraction begins to grow, not out of desperation, but out of resonance. Not because he tried to be liked, but because he was willing to be himself without apology or demand. Detachment in its truest form is not a tactic. It is the natural byproduct of a man who has learned to lead with inner calm, not chaos. And in a world that constantly seeks attention, the man who does not chase it often becomes the one who receives it.